it just kind of popped out. Lisa was talking about IVF, and I think we were quite connected just in that moment as girlfriends talking to each other. And I kind of said very casually, oh, if you ever need a surrogate, I could do that. You know, we went to lunch to catch up that day. It wasn't something that was in the back of my mind where I was going, today's the day I'm going to offer. It just kind of slipped out.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation on which we are recording this podcast and pay my respects to elders both past and present. I am not going to be introducing my husband Cam Dado because he's not here. It's just me, and we're just going to have a girly girl chat again today. You know, when you are just so close to someone, a best friend that you share laughs, hurt, pain, everything with, maybe you even share clothes or shoes. Well, these two women have taken the friendship to a level not many of us will ever experience. Sarah Megginson lent her body to her dear friend Lisa Messenger to have the thing she wanted most in the world, a baby. This is a beautiful story of generosity, kindness, and a long, wild journey, all intimately told through their book, The Power of Two. A life-changing story of friendship, surrogacy, and true connection. So before I chat with them, just a little info on who they are. Lisa she's a vibrant, game-changing founder and editor-in-chief of The Collective Hub, a multimedia cross-platform movement to inspire and educate. And Lisa has authored over 40 books. She's an incredible international speaker and a passionate humanitarian. And Sarah is a lifestyle columnist and editor, and she's ghostwritten or edited more than 30 books. An expert in finance with 20 years experience, she's a regular media commentator on a mission to make money easy, especially for women and kids. They're good mates. They've got a story to tell. So let's get them into the bathroom and find out more. Please welcome Sarah and Lisa. So Sarah and Lisa, welcome to the bathroom, the Separate Bathrooms.
Thank you. We're so delighted to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you both on. Where are you talking to us from? You're up north, aren't you?
I'm sunny Gold Coast.
Oh, yep.
And I'm Bangalore inland from Byron Bay. We are an hour and 15 minutes away from each other geographically.
Oh, are you still working with each other? Because you were workmates. That's how you met, right?
Yes, we worked on the book together, but that's
Yep.
about where the professional relationship ends these days.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think you're slightly above that now. So tell us a little bit, firstly, about your friendship. How did it begin with the two of you?
Well, I'll jump in first. I think the great thing is that when we reflected back on it when we were writing the book, we realized that the very first time we met, I actually had my eldest, she's now 14, but she was 6 months old at the time. And it was my very first meeting with Lisa. I was going to work with her on a property book. I was going to be her editor. And I tried to cancel the meeting because my babysitter fell through. And I couldn't bring my baby to the meeting. This was 14 years ago. You didn't do such things. You pretended you didn't have children.
Sure.
But when I called the office to say, hey, I've got my baby, can we reschedule? Lisa said, no, just bring your baby. That's fine. And that was kind of just not the thing that was done back then. So I very quickly realized that this person was going to be not a normal, it's not going to be a normal work meeting.
Yes.
And then when I met Lisa, she was really warm and lovely. And that was our very first project we worked on together. It became the first of many. We ended up working on dozens of books. Then Lisa had her magazine. I worked on that. And we just became really good friends over that time as well.
It's a little bit foretelling, isn't it, that, Sarah, you arrived the first meeting with Lisa with a baby in tow. I mean, who would have thought many years later the journey that the both of you have been on?
It's pretty wild, Ali, and I think that's what we reflect on a lot, and so much of why we've written the book as well. It's much more than a pregnancy book or a surrogacy or a fertility book. It's much more around the themes of, friendship and staying open. And you never know people that, will enter your universe at any given stage in life. And who would have imagined that 13 years later, Sarah would be carrying my baby. So yes, in terms of our professional relationship, Sarah edited I think probably the majority of the books that I've written over the years, and I think I'm up to 39 or 40 or something now,
Amazing.
and also was one of my top writers for Collective Hub print magazine. And so we've been in and out of each other's universes professionally, but also have had many, many personal intersections, which we can get into as well through the years. So by the time we got to this point, we certainly knew each other very well, although not quite as intimately as we need
Yeah.
to know each other.
No doubt. No doubt. I love, I was reading a bit of your book, just reminding myself this morning, the prologue. I just love how it begins. You say, or you write, if you think this is a fluffy feel-good book about having a baby, we're sorry to disappoint. 14 years of friendship, 8 years of trying, 18 rounds of IVF, one baby boy. I just think that sets you up for this incredible journey that the both of you have been on. How did the conversation first come up around surrogacy?
It was it. We'll probably jump in and out. Sarah and I are very much in each other's heads, and her body has been my body. so we can probably each answer everything. So I'll jump into this one. So the conversation first came up in 2018, and Sarah and I were sitting in a rooftop cafe on the top of the Paramount Hotel in Surrey Hills, having lunch as we did from time to time. And I was a couple of rounds into my IVF journey, and Sarah just happened to mention, which is pretty wild, if you're ever interested in surrogacy, like, I'd be kind of happy to carry a baby for you. And I was like, wow, I already knew she was all kinds of amazing, but I was like, who actually says something like that?
Yeah.
So it was amazing. But I think we all need to come at things, when we're ready. And it was actually another 4 years that passed until such time as we had the conversation again. And by then I was kind of really, really ready and had, experienced so many different avenues and paths to trying to get pregnant myself. And I feel like sometimes in life, it's not like we just landed on, hey, how are you going today? You want to carry my baby? Although finally the conversation was a little like that. But I mean, it didn't happen. It took 8 years really of me trying to fall pregnant naturally, adopt a child, having a miscarriage, going through 2 rounds of IVF with donor sperm, meeting my current partner, going through a further 14 rounds of IVF with him, until I was at a point where I was like, that conversation you had 4 years ago, I'm kind of ready for it now. So, it was a lot and pretty extraordinary. And so I can jump into that piece perhaps.
Yeah. I think on that day when I offered it, I wasn't being very thoughtful or intentional, which is an odd thing to say when you're offering something so massive. But it just kind of popped out. Lisa was talking about IVF, and I think we were quite connected just in that moment as girlfriends talking to each other. And I kind of said very casually, if you ever need a surrogate, I could do that. And it was a genuine offer, but it wasn't, we went to lunch to catch up that day. It wasn't something that was in the back of my mind where I was going, today's the day I'm going to offer. It just kind of slipped out. And then straight away, Lisa was like, oh, that's so kind, but, I don't think I'm there yet. And I kind of just parked it from then. It was like a little conversation, and then we didn't talk about it again for 4 years.
And at that point, Sarah, how many you have 3 beautiful children. How many kids did you had when you offered to be a surrogate at that?
I'd had all of my kids, and I'd had a miscarriage. So I'd had my 3 children, and then I'd had an accidental pregnancy that ended in miscarriage. And I think because of that really connected me even more to this unfairness, I guess, with women who want to have a baby and can't. And I had my 3 beautiful, healthy, amazing children. And here was my friend Lisa, who desperately wanted a child, and the odds were stacked against her. So that definitely kind of was probably at the back of my mind and prompted that question to pop out.
It never ceases to amaze me the how many women, this idea that you can just get pregnant and off you go. And some women are like that, of course. But the amount of women, I don't know anyone who actually hasn't probably been trying to get pregnant, had a miscarriage, has had a struggle. Like, it's not as easy as as the movies kind of make us believe it to be.
Oh, it's
Agreed.
actually wild. I feel like, and that's part of the reason, well, a large part of the reason that we've written such a personal book is to
Yeah.
really share with people, because I think we're told, all through our 20s, be careful, don't get pregnant. And
Yeah.
I think, so we're all kind of got the fear of, you know, everything in us about, oh my gosh, I better not do this. And then I feel like there needs to be a lot more education, because since we started sharing our story well before the book was even an idea, really, and we started chatting to people about it, the amount of people, I mean, everyone really either has been through some kind of fertility
Yeah.
struggle themselves or absolutely knows someone who has. And I think what would happen was people would come up to me or Sarah, and we'd share a little bit of our story, like one-on-one with someone, and inevitably there would be tears from them and us. And we just realized that, oh my gosh, Sarah and I are writers. That is our language. That's how we process. That's how we kind of put things out into the world. And so we just thought, okay, let's do this. And we didn't realize just how personal we would get, but it is all in there. And I think, or we think and hope, that it will impact and help so many people.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Lisa, 18 rounds of IVF. That is, I can't imagine the toll, because people don't understand it's a physical toll as well, with the hormone injections, everything that you go through in order to attempt that IVF process. How, though, emotionally and mentally did you deal with that? Because that is a roller coaster that is so wild and so challenging to be on.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I've almost somehow desensitized myself from it now,
Right.
compartmentalized it.
Yeah.
But definitely writing the book relived every moment. And then we recorded the audio book, and I just was crying, going kind of like empathy and compassion for myself going through all of that. I think mindset is one of the biggest pieces, because, and I've been writing books for 20 years, actually, this month, ironically, in a way. And a lot of them have been around mindset and overcoming adversity and positive psychology. And, so I've been teaching myself and doing a lot of therapy for years and years and years. I did 16 rounds of IVF myself. Sarah did 2 rounds. It does take a massive toll emotionally, physically, and financially. And I think it's probably
Sure.
worth unpacking those a little bit, either for people in the trenches or for people who don't really understand the magnitude of it. So emotionally, because there are so many pieces around that, I think as an innate problem solver and someone who just has had my own business for 23 years, I see something and I'm like, well, here, I'll, if that door doesn't open, I'll do that. Or if I can't do that, I'll do that. So I'm so used to doing that. But when it's your body and it's sort of largely beyond your control, emotionally it takes a real toll, because firstly, I was petrified of needles when I started this, and I worked out I've injected myself something like 480 times. So
Oh my gosh.
emotionally it's a lot, jumping on and off planes and stages and things. So then you're flying around with needles and medications that need to be kept on ice. And so I need letters from doctors. So and so emotionally I was doing a lot of it solo in hotel rooms. The medications you need to take, for me, protocols are slightly different for everyone, but twice a day, every day, for sort of sometimes 10 days. Now that meant you can choose any time, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., 10 a.m., 10 p.m. But because it goes for 10 days, I might be on a stage or, on a something. So I'm, inhaling things or injecting myself in different bathrooms. Emotionally also, which jumps into the physicality of it, I am someone from a mindset perspective who needs to train. Like I move my body for my mindset as much as for my body. And every single time you put an embryo in, you're not meant to, or so my clinic said, train or do any exercise or get your heart rate up for 2 weeks after. So 16 times for 2 weeks at a time, 32 weeks, I've not been able to move my body. And then emotionally and physically, it's like the 2-week waiting period of, they put the embryo in and then it's like, am I going to get pregnant? So 16 times I heard the words, not this time, you're not pregnant this time. So there's a whole lot of emotional and physical.
Yes.
And financially, IVF alone in Australia costs between, generally for us anyway, $10,000 to $12,000 per round.
Per round.
And
Yep.
plus all of the other, everything else that goes around that. I mean, I had several polyps removed and other operations and things throughout. Plus, I saw in conjunction with the IVF a whole lot of different naturopaths and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. So we are very fortunate, and I do not take it lightly that we were in a financial position that we could do this. However, it has come with massive sacrifices for both my partner Stephen and I. We sold our family home to fund it, and we're still in a pretty big hole financially. Luckily, we know how to make money, but it took a big toll there as well. But I did meet someone a couple of weeks ago who said to me that she and her husband saved up for 10 years to do 1 round of IVF. So I really don't take it lightly. We've been extraordinarily fortunate that we've been able to do that. And I'll just leave you with this. Stephen did say to me at one point, if we want a baby and that is the end result, then it doesn't matter if it costs $1 or $1 million, and it certainly costs, he certainly costs the latter. And little Hugo is at work as we speak, making the money back. But I mean, I think it's really important for anyone, like, if there's something you want more than almost anything on the planet, then, you sacrifice anything to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything, I mean, I wanted to be a mum from the age of 5, so I would have been doing anything I could have possibly have done. Sarah, for you, what's been some of the most challenging experiences? We'll get to the rewarding experiences as well, but what was the challenging experiences for you in being the surrogate for Hugo and Lisa?
I mean, I think the physicality of it was really different because I had my children when I was 28 when I had my first daughter, and in my early 30s when I had my next children. So I found being pregnant at 41 was a whole new experience. The physicality of it, that, my body was older, and I now had 3 children. I kind of underestimated just how much energy it would take to be working full time and have 3 kids and be pregnant. But all of that was, in every step of it, at the very beginning when I sat with my husband and said, I'd like to do this, we kind of ran through all of those scenarios. We were like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if his big kind of concerns at the beginning were, what if you get sick? What if something happens to you? The law is really clear in Australia that the mother's kind of life is always the first priority. So that gave him some peace of mind because he was like, what if something happens and our kids end up without a mother? And I said, well, you were never worried when I was pregnant with them that I was going to suddenly die in childbirth or something. So why are you concerned now?
You had a bit of a scare though at like 26, 27 weeks though, didn't you?
We did. We had a moment. But I think we ran through all of those things. Like what happens if I get sick? What happens if I have a friend who had a cervical stitch at 19 weeks and was on bed rest for the rest of her pregnancy. So we talked about all of those scenarios and what happens if, and when we were doing that, there was nothing that we came to that we decided, oh, that's a deal breaker. That there was no scenario, no outcome that was so bad that we went, oh, well, we can't risk that, so we're going to have to pull out. Like every scenario that we came up with, there was a solution to it. Like if I get sick, then I'll take some time off work. If I need support, we'll have to get the support. Like we just kind of worked through it all because I make decisions like this. This was obviously a really big one, but the way I live my life is to always think in rocking chair moments. And when I'm 80 and I'm on my rocking chair, or maybe not even 80, maybe 90, but when I'm on my rocking chair and looking back at my life, what are the moments that are going to stand out? And that I'm really grateful for, and the adventures I had and the times I said yes. And this was definitely one of those. And there was no negative outcome that was so big that it was enough to say no.
Yeah, beautiful. And your husband was, besides your, the concern for your health, was there ever that concern that, I mean, this is probably a really common question that a lot of mums or other women might ask, that, you would become so attached to Hugo that you wouldn't want to then hand him to Lisa? Like, was that, I mean, how do you work with that mindset? I guess you were already in it from the moment you offered yourself.
Yeah. And I think that is probably the most common question I get asked, and especially when I was pregnant, when I would say to people, it's not my baby, it's my friend's baby. People would say, oh my God, while I was like heavily pregnant, they would say, what if you can't hand him over? And I'd be like, well, it's a bit awkward now. Right. We're here. But really, I knew going into it, and I think a lot of, some of my friends said to me, like, I just know that I couldn't do it. And I'm like, that's great. You should never be a surrogate.
Yes. Yeah.
But for me, I was really clear. We had great boundaries from the beginning. And my husband actually suggested, from the beginning, he said, I won't come to the scans and appointments, because he said the only time I've ever done that in the past was for our children. And I don't know how I'll react being there, seeing a baby growing inside your tummy, and it's not ours. So let's just put that boundary in place. That was fantastic and really helpful. He also suggested, let's call it your pregnancy, but Lisa's baby. And that became a really great boundary from the beginning too. So I would come home from the obstetrician and say, hey, Lisa's baby's doing really well. We're at 16 weeks. We saw XYZ today. And that kind of words are so important. And that language really helped us have really clear boundaries. And I also think the fact that we explained everything to our kids, we kept them so involved in all of it, meant there was no secrets. There was no opportunity for anything to fester or to get overlooked. We were just really open and communicating so constantly that there was no time that I was sitting there secretly pining, going, oh, at Christmas, I wish we had another little baby under the tree with us, because I knew the goal was to get Lisa that baby. That was what we were focused on. So it was a pretty clear boundary, and I didn't have to hand him over. Lisa called me.
Lisa, were you there for every single scan?
Every single scan, yes. And it was the most, I think we have an amazing way of, forgetting about hardships, because honestly, those 9 months or whatever it was together were just the most magical moments. And Sarah and I, we would laugh, and we still do it. We would be either on a FaceTime, when I was always physically at the scans, but otherwise every single day we were either FaceTiming or DMing on Instagram or texting or calling, and often multiple things simultaneously. But I very much treated it as my pregnancy. And so every single scan I was there. What was beautiful and amazing about that is, and it's the weirdest thing, but all of those years of trying to get pregnant, I had never let myself go beyond what would happen when they said you're pregnant. And so it was amazing having like a best girlfriend in the room with our obstetrician, because between her and Dr. Drew, they would explain to me, because I was like, oh my gosh, what happens now?
Yeah.
Sarah would be like, well, this is what we do. Because I know it sounds kind of wild wanting to be a mum for so long, but I just didn't know what happened beyond the moment when they were like, you're pregnant. So Sarah really was incredible, having been there 3 times before. She'd be like, this is what we're doing now. So it was really, I can't even explain how much fun, like seeing the little heartbeat together, or all of the things that we did together through that time was just so beautiful.
And of course, I mean, the impact on your friendship, you can't put, I don't know if there's any words you can put to that. Is there any words you can put to what that did to a friendship, that, there you are sharing the most miraculous thing that you can probably share?
I'm not sure if I've ever felt as close to anyone in my life or as grateful, and it was just fun. It was like all of the previous years of heartache and hardship and loss just almost disintegrated. And that
Yeah.
9 months kind of trumped everything and the time since. I mean, it's actually beautiful. You know, it's all amazing.
What can you walk us through? So, okay, so you go into labor, Sarah, and you're pretty sure it's labor. I know you had sort of a bit of a, oh, is this labor, earlier on, but it wasn't. It was a kidney infection. But what, you go into labor, what's your steps? Can you walk us through?
Yes, I've done it 3 times before, so I was pretty sure when I was in labor. And the false start you're talking about was when I had a kidney infection at 27 weeks. And I knew I wasn't in labor, but it really hurt.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've got this excruciating pain, but it's not coming from the right place. When I knew I was in labor, it was quite surreal because I woke up at midnight. It was exactly midnight, and I felt a click. And I felt a gush of water. Anyone who's ever had a water break moment knows what that's like. I'd always wanted one of those movie moments where you're like at the shops and you have a big gush and it's all crazy and everyone's like, oh my God. I always wanted one of them. I'm so dramatic, but I never had one. So this was just a little moment in the middle of the night, and I lay there for a couple of minutes going, is this happening? Because it wasn't like previous times where I just nudged my husband and say, let's go. This time I was like, so we have to call my mum to come over and watch my kids. We have to call the obstetrician to let him know to come. We have to call his parents to let them know they're about to become parents. So I kind of lay there for a minute going, is it happening? And then a contraction started and I went, oh, yep, it's happening. So then everything started from that point. That was midnight, and Lisa caught him at 3:38. So it was less than 4 hours from that moment to him arriving.
So fast. Wow.
She's fast, and we knew, we were always prepared. Sarah had always said, when it's on, it's on. So Stephen and I, even though we only live like an hour and 15 away from Sarah and similar to the hospital, we came up a week before he was due, so that we were all in very close proximity.
Yep.
But the funny thing is, we did like a stretch and sweep on the Wednesday, which is, meant to sort of try and induce labor, and then nothing. And so every night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, I'd packed and unpacked, and I was like so ready and hypervigilant.
Yeah.
And by Friday, Stephen and I were staying at the QT, and by Friday we were like, okay, let's all have Sarah, David and the 3 kids and us. Let's just have a beautiful weekend by the pool. Clearly Hugo's not ready to make his presence known into the world, and we were going to have we were going to be induced the following Tuesday. So Friday night I didn't pack, and I was just like very kind of, oh well. And then midnight, or just after, we get the call from David. And he's a radio announcer, and so in the radio voice it was like, this is the call you've been waiting for.
Oh my gosh.
So extraordinary to be like, oh my gosh, this is it. And so we just raced, but it all happened really fast, and so it was the most beautiful, amazing thing. And also there were some very comical moments, because Sarah had never had, I mean, she's like some kind of superhero in so many ways, but she'd never had what are they called? The thingy, the injection.
Epidural? No.
Epidural, yeah, I labored too fast.
Yeah, so she'd never had an epidural. And then this time we were in the shower, and so I was like, I think I might have an epidural this time. So she had one, but it didn't kick in until about, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes or something after Hugo was born. So whilst she was like, we were like lying opposite her with Hugo on our chests, and Sarah's leg kept falling off the bed because she had no control, and she kept being like, oh, can you pick up my leg? So I had to like go over and keep picking her leg back up onto the bed. And the other comical thing is, someone had grabbed one of our phones, thank goodness, and been taking all the photos. And there is a photo of me with my hand on Sarah's shoulder, because there's a clock above the bed, at 3:34 a.m. And then Hugo was born at 3:38 a.m. So it happened. She was like, he's coming. And Dr. Drew, obstetrician, was outside eating cheese and biscuits, and it was like on. And again, I thought, I've got my beautiful bikini on, I'm going to, wash my hands, I'm going to look hot and amazing. And then suddenly it was like, boom, and like no hand washing. I'm still in some woolen jumper, and Dr. Drew is like biscuits coming out of his mouth, and he's like, catch! And then there was my baby in my arms. I
Oh
caught him,
my
and
gosh.
yeah.
Oh, how, I mean, and then so that moment where he lays on your chest, Lisa, what was that like for you?
You can't. I get so emotional because it's like, oh, so many things. Because I think, Ali, I had this thought that, I don't know what it's from, the movies or something, that he would be ripped away from me and like taken into another room to be like weighed and washed and something. And
Yeah.
so, but literally, I was the first person to hold him and the only person to hold him. And then we had very specifically said, can we have a sofa bed opposite Sarah's bed so we could lie down and I could have the same experience as I would if I had have birthed him. And yeah, no one took him away. He came straight and lay on my chest. And it's like, oh, I can't even, yeah, like the most amazing thing. And then as soon as, we'd had a little cuddle and Sarah had been stitched up, I took Hugo over and put him on Sarah's chest. And just like that moment together was just so beautiful. And poor Stephen, he's always a bit like, hey, how about me? Because I feel like in a way, Sarah and I like got so much closer throughout that whole time than Stephen and I were, and I couldn't wait to run over there and be like, look at our baby.
Yeah, I know. I know. Did Stephen cut the cord? Did he do the?
He did cut the cord. Yeah, and he was really squeamish about that. He was almost like, why do I get that job? But he was, but he was determined that Hugo, come to me first. So he did cut the cord. And the funny thing is, Ali, the last few days, Hugo's, he's, what's today's date? He's 15 months in 2 days as we're recording this. And he's just started like being really fascinated about body types or body bits, and he's just started pointing to my belly button and his belly button like literally 2 days ago.
Okay.
And so I keep saying, that's where Daddy cut you away from Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Sarah, for you, how has it been watching your dear friend with Hugo, knowing that this is the gift that you've given to Lisa and Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. The journey has been incredible from the beginning. And the main feeling for me when he was born was relief, because I so wanted to be the piece of the puzzle that helped them get this beautiful baby that they'd been longing for. And I can remember the feeling when he was out was just like absolute relief flooded me. The double relief of I never have to give birth again and they have their beautiful baby. And it was like a literal and hypothetical, like passing of the baton. Like I'd done my job and now here you go. And I think a lot of women can resonate with this idea that a pregnancy feels like you're coming to a finish line and you give birth and then you have a baby. It like starts again. This whole new world starts again. And it's been amazing from afar watching them, just sink into parenthood. And they're both amazing parents. So loving and doting, and he is just an adorable little man. And my kids get along really well with him. It's beautiful to kind of just see their relationship grow as well. They call him their brother cousin.
Oh, how cute.
And it's really nice to have that beautiful young energy around again. I think I'm in such a different phase of parenting. My kids are teenagers and pre-teenagers, and Hugo's one. And running around now. So it's just a whole different ball game.
And there's so many dualities, which has been fascinating, which so many people wouldn't think about, but just a few little things like when Sarah was carrying Hugo, she was obviously pregnant. So people would be like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant, congratulations. So she was constantly having to say, oh yes, but it's not my baby. And then I would say, because I always felt like I was pregnant, so I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm 7 months pregnant. And people would be like, wow, you're really hiding that well. And then things around the birth, like Sarah said, I was able finally to get like my fittest, strongest, healthiest self ready for when the baton was passed, so that I could be, my strongest version of me for Hugo. Whereas Sarah could actually have the baby and then be like, well, I was going to say relax. Yeah, right. We've had three kids and so many tabs open. But like there's so many different sort of things going on all the time, which people often wouldn't necessarily consider.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that you probably were able to do, Sarah, was actually go home and sleep, which is probably, Lisa, you didn't.
No, well, actually,
with a newborn.
Sarah, that was the plan, and she said to her kids, like, okay, Mummy's going to take some time off, but kids don't really, they don't know.
Really
They're like,
care.
Mom, I want this, Mom,
Of
I want
course.
that. So I don't think it worked out quite how she...
I in my head, I thought my work was really amazing and gave me 6 weeks of leave to recover. And in my head, I thought 6 weeks, I'm like not going to know myself. 6 weeks off with no baby. I'm just going to relax. And like, honestly, what was I thinking? I was in a hormonal, I don't know, mental phase. But I ended up, I think out of that 6 weeks, I had one day where I didn't have a medical appointment or my kids weren't sick. I had one day of rest.
No.
That is the plight of a working mum. I was delusional to think it was going to be any other way.
We were spending quite a lot of time together whenever we could through that time as well. Like I think when we left the hospital, because we had 2 rooms next to each other for 4 days, so it was like this beautiful big love-in. And when we left, it was a bit like, no. So like 3 days later, I think it was 3 days later, Sarah, David and the kids came down, and we were a bit inseparable as much as possible through that time.
If it's okay to ask, did you use breast milk, Lisa, or did you go straight to formula, or?
No, and it's fine to ask, and it's fascinating. So I was told that there is a protocol that you can use to induce breast milk, even though I've not carried my own baby.
Yeah.
But what that would entail was something like going on the pill for like 4 months in the lead up, which just seemed so wildly ironic for me that I'd spent all this time off the pill trying to get pregnant. And then on top of that, I'd also have to go on another hormone. And Ali, to be honest, after 8 years of hormones and pumping myself full of whatever, I was
your body didn't know what was up or down.
Am I doing that?
Yeah.
But the wild thing is, and nature versus nurture, nurture versus nature, whatever you want to call it. But my left breast actually started producing milk. So and I think it's because I always carried, Hugo's head was always on the left side of me from the get-go. That's just the way that I carried him, and I think my breast must have been like, okay, it's on. There's a little munchie here who wants to munch. So that was pretty wild. So I did put him on my boob a little bit, but it just, I don't know, also there's a bit of a selfish reason around this. Stephen doesn't need a lot of sleep. He needs like 4 hours sleep a night, and I love my sleep. So putting him on a bottle also meant that Stephen, God love him, was able to do the majority of the night feeds. Yep. So we pretty much went to bottle.
So is that an actual, so without taking any hormones, your body started to create breast milk?
Yeah.
That is amazing.
It's amazing.
Gosh, women's bodies are incredible.
I know. I think it's a little bit of a medical phenomena, and I feel quite proud because I remember when Mia Friedman interviewed Sarah and I early on her podcast, and she was like, "Can you do this?" And then she was like, "Oh, well, of course you'll be able to." Like, because I'm like the great overachiever, I always find a way to do things.
You're right.
I was quite proud when never for a moment thinking my body would actually do it. I was like, look at me go. I think you're right though. It is extraordinary how connected I felt to my pregnancy, and Sarah and I are very big on languaging, as you might have noticed, but throughout, and it is extraordinary how in sync our bodies were at various times. Like crazy kind of stuff would happen. So whilst I was surprised, I also wasn't surprised in a way.
Yeah. They're finding out more and more about breast milk. I was reading something the other day how the antibodies in breast milk actually adjust to the baby's. If the baby is ill, the antibodies will actually adjust in order to give the right antibodies to that baby to help them heal whatever if they're some kind of illness. I mean, it's
extraordinary. You can see the different color actually in women who I never had any luck expressing, but women who express, the color of the milk changes. It changes depending on the kids. If they're sick, it changes as they get older, and the nutrients they need are different. It is absolutely incredible. Our bodies are amazing. And the flip side of that was my milk actually came in. I did everything I could to avoid it. I took medication and I strapped myself, and about 5 days after he was born, it came in a big way. And I called the obstetrician and I was like, what do I do? Because I've been in so much pain.
Yes.
Anyone that's done it knows they just fill up and it's rock hard. And he said, do not touch them. Do not get any hot water on them. And I was like, are you kidding me? All I want to do is go have a shower and just like relieve the pain. And he said, no, you can't touch them. You can't stimulate them at all, because that will just produce more milk, because that's what what happens with a baby. So I had to wear like a double sports bra for about 2 weeks to just strap it all in.
Walk around holding them up.
Bodies are incredible.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, it had all just settled down and gone away. It just absorbed back into your body. Like, what an incredible thing.
And God love Sarah, she did try to, because we were going to use the colostrum. So Sarah did try and
express that. I just never have luck with expressing.
Neither did I, actually, yeah.
But we decided to not go any further than that, sort of, draw a boundary around all of that kind of thing.
So at what point do you decide, okay, this is a book? Was this pre even getting pregnant, Sarah? Or was it like, what point did you both decide this is a good book?
Not before getting pregnant, but certainly from really early. Lisa and I both process our worlds through writing. I've always been a writer and a journaler. So really early in the pregnancy, I was journaling the thoughts and feelings around it. And the more that we shared, the more that people kind of reached out, and the more that we realized there was a story in it. And Lisa's always an open book with her life. She's written lots of books about different parts of her life. So we kind of quite early in the pregnancy thought that there was an idea here, but we then kind of parked it a little bit while we focused on the pregnancy. Towards the end, when I was almost due with him, was when we really kind of solidified it and went, let's do something with this.
Yeah.
And there's a few pieces around that. Yes, my life has been quite literally an open book. So something happens, I share about it and, share the lessons learned and help people to apply it to their own lives. And Stephen is extraordinarily, private. Sarah, David and I lead relatively public lives in a way. But Stephen is, extremely private and never wants to share anything about anything. And so, but it was actually him who said, you should do this, or you should start sharing, because he realized early on the impact and it was having on people, and just how much we could really help people. It was funny. We signed a deal a month before Hugo was born.
A week, actually. It was a week before he was born.
Yeah. And then, but we didn't. So that was July 2023. He was born on the 22nd of July. And we didn't have to deliver the manuscript until February. And it's funny because by then I had Hugo for quite a long time, and I started going, do I really want to share this? Like, I'm just having such a beautiful time. Part of me just wants to forget like all of this 8 years prior and everything. But it was such a beautiful thing writing it together. Sarah and I sat opposite each other in a shared Google document, and we just tiptoed off each other the whole time, and it was so beautiful. And I think it's going to help so many people. I did say I'd never write. I've written 2 very, very, very personal books before, and I swore I would never write another personal book, but I think it will help so many people. So I'm happy to put it out there. And also for Hugo, like, we were very conscious that, are we sharing too much? Is this the right thing to do by him? But I think it's beautiful that his journey is documented.
Oh, I mean, imagine when he's of an age where he can read that book and know what you went through, because obviously details get fuzzy, but of course you've put so much into the book, and to be able to read that about how desperately wanted this little boy is and was, is such a treat for him, I'm sure. Is there something that you found? Is there sort of advice for people in the sense of things not to say to people going through your experience? I'm sure you've had lots of people weigh in on it. Is there something that you would rather people not say to either of you?
Yeah, in fact, we share almost a chapter, I think, Sarah, in the book of experiences around what not to say. And I think people are well-meaning for the most part, and it's also what's become very much, our normal isn't normal for everyone, and I think people are quite fascinated. And also, if we choose to share this part of our lives, then we are also opening ourselves up for lines of questioning. There are a lot of things around. Well, the one thing that I got asked every single time, which I won't share what the answer is on here, but every single time when I said, my friend is carrying my baby, people would be like, "Oh, is it your egg?" Like every single time, which was really jarring, because I was like, whoa. So that kind of, other things I would say around IVF for sure. Everyone has an opinion, and people will say things like, "Oh, well, just relax more," or "Well, of course you can't get pregnant. Look at your lifestyle." But I mean, that lifestyle, fair enough, and probably right to a certain degree. But my lifestyle of on and off planes speaking, I get paid a lot of money to speak, and I was like, something's got to fund this IVF. It's not going to fund itself. So I think what I always say is, I'm open to feedback from people with actual experience in an area, but actually a lot of it isn't helpful. Like, have you tried this? Yep, I've tried that probably 70 times. Thank you. So yeah, I think there's a lot.
Yeah, of course.
I think Lisa's right in that most people are well-intentioned, and also we're very clunky when trying to make people feel better, and we don't mean to be. So we say clunky things sometimes. And I had this experience when my dad died, and lots of people were trying to be well-meaning. So I always took their intentions and the kindness with what they were trying to say. But when people say things that start with "at least," almost anything that comes after that is really diminishing. At least he's out of pain now, or at least he got to be in his, he was 79. At least he made it to 79. When I had a miscarriage, people would say, "Oh, at least you've got other children." Someone said, "At least you don't have to stay up all night and change pooey nappies." And I was like, "Oh, but I really wanted to."
Yeah, exactly.
I really wanted the nappies. And people are really well-intentioned. They're trying to make you feel better. But what you really want in those moments is for just someone to say, "Are you okay? And what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Do you need anything?
Yeah.
Can I give you a hug? Can I drop off a lasagna?"
Yeah.
You just want people to show up.
And actually, we went one layer deeper in the book, because it's something, Ali, it's a great question. Sarah and I really reflected on it, and part of what we came up with, because our dads actually died, which we talk about in the book, that we've had lots of shared experiences. They died 3 months apart to the day, and so we went, we kind of unpacked what had happened around that as well. And what we decided for both of us and so many people around us was sometimes just do the thing. Like, don't ask, or saying every day, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" It's kind of like, "Yep, no, I'm not okay." But like, so sometimes just drop the lasagna over, or just do the thing. Take the kids out.
Yeah,
for
it's
an hour.
like when someone says, "What do you need?" in that moment, you don't know what you need. You're so deep in grief,
And it becomes another
Yes.
thing. I actually just had one of my best girlfriends just lost her mum recently, and it was horrible and very fast. And when it happened, I just showed up literally in Melbourne. I just turned up when she needed me. But also, the worst thing in those moments can be someone saying, "What do you need? How can I help?" Because you are in the worst phase of your life, and now you're having to show up for someone else.
Right.
So what you really want from someone is not, "Let me know what you need from me." You just need simple answers. Do you want a lasagna or a spag bowl? Like, not what do you want for dinner tomorrow, or how can I help with the kids, but I'm available Saturday. Do you want me to come and do your laundry for you or take the kids out? Like, just give people just show up with support, because if the person doesn't want it, they'll just write back and say, thank you so much. I'm all good for this weekend, but I appreciate you. And it will register that you've offered it, and they'll reach out if they need it. But we can accidentally kind of add to people's stuff. It was just like, I felt like I had all these tabs open of really beautiful, well-meaning friends who would check in. How's your dad going? And I'd be like, he's still sick, still dying. We're still at the hospital every day. And it built up in my head as all these people I had to reply to, and you get to a point where you just abandon it. But all of those people were really trying to be helpful and support me and love bomb me, but instead it can sometimes feel like another burden to carry. So just showing up for people can be as simple as saying, I'm thinking about you, and, reducing the burden.
I love that. That's great advice. Well, you certainly showed up for Lisa, and Lisa, you're clearly showing up for Hugo, your beautiful little one. I just wanted to ask one more question. How do you describe each other in one word? What would be one word to describe each other with?
Well, Sarah, I'm just going to say angel.
Lisa, I would say tenacious.
Yes.
Just literally never gives up in any respect.
Oh, that's incredible. Lisa and Sarah, thank you so much for your time. The book is called The Power of Two, a life-changing story of friendship, surrogacy, and true connection. What an incredible story. It's a beautiful book. And as you say, it's warts and all. It's a hell of a journey that you've been on. But congratulations, you're here, you've done it, and baby Hugo is thriving. And so congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much for having us, Ali.
Yeah, our pleasure.